Hey guys, Mahal everyone, 40 the Broadway Saiyan here. Welcome back again to my YouTube channel with another video on the global version of Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. In today's video, we're going to be revisiting a series that I started a few months back called Weapon Passives 15 CP versus 35 CP. This is going to be part 9 on this series. Now before I move forward to the video, I do want to remind you guys that on every video that I put out for Opera Omnia to look into the video description as well as the pinned comments, because a lot of folks have been asking me, oh, where do you get your resources from? Where do you get your information from? All of the links are there. So be sure to check them out. There's a Dissidia DB, there's Red's global tier list, there's also Safina's database, and there's also the Altema and a bunch of other communities that you guys can check out. So be sure to check out the links in the video description as well as the pinned comments. With that being said, let's go ahead and talk about Weapon Passes 15 CP versus 35 CP Part 9. So, some friendly reminders when watching, especially for those of you that are newer to this series. It's intended to help new players and free-to-play players understand which weapon passive between 15 and 35 CP can best help a character function in the event that you don't have both of those weapon passives on the character. It also helps you understand which weapon passive would be more ideal for a budget build, as newer players and free-to-play players will not have every weapon released in their inventory. This will not cover World of Illusion event weapons such as Cloud's 15 CP Crimson Edge or Bartz's 15 CP Noir Caliber, because those weapons don't impact the character's abilities directly, and for the most part they have been kind of situational. This will also not cover EX weapons, as you guys know, because I have a separate series for that called the X Factor, so be sure to check that out. And then just something that I wanted to add, if you happen to have both the 15 and 35 CP weapons for the said characters that are mentioned in the video, then you should obviously max limit break the 15 CP first. That way you could permanently learn that passive and you could equip it without needing the weapon, and then you equip the 35 CP. That way they're both active. So let's go ahead and take a look at our first character, and remember, I do go over the characters as they are unlocked within the game. So the first one in this video we're going to go over is Aiko. So Aiko has two abilities: HP regen, granting Brave to all based on 100% of users' initial Brave, and she also grants HP regen to all based on 8% of max HP for 6 turns, and she has an ability called Smite, which is that holy magic Brave attack that grants Brave to all based on 100% of the HP damage that it deals, and it has an overall 80% Brave damage output. So her 15 CP Priest Racket passive grants 10% attack up and 10% max Brave up to all for 12 turns, and it also extends that HP regen to 12 turns. Her 35 CP Magic Racket passive increases the overall Brave damage that Smite deals to 180%. It also lowers the action delay on this ability. It also now grants Brave to all by 40% of users' attack, and it grants medium speed up to Aiko for 5 turns. So the verdict: which weapon should you prioritize first as far as passive wise? So the verdict is both of Aiko's weapons have very powerful passives. So remember when she first came out and she didn't even have access to her 35 CP, and then remember when we had the Vanille Lost chapters come out and she still didn't have it? Aiko was a very, very powerful unit to bring to some of the harder content back then. So even with just her 15 CP, she can actually be a very, very valuable unit, as she provides your party HP regen and also increases their damage a little bit. However, with that said, the Brave Battery mechanic now, with the current content that we have, if you decide to use Aiko, gives the 35 CP a little bit more priority and edge, because Brave Battery, especially now that it provides 2 different Brave Batteries to the party, one based on the overall damage that it deals, and also 40% of the user's attack, means that the rest of your party is getting closer to hitting their max Brave, so they can deal HP damage and make clearing a difficult stage or whatever quest you're on a lot faster. So while both weapons are good, if you just happen to have the 35 CP only, your Aiko for a budget build is pretty much set. Next character we're going to look at is Titus. So he has 2 abilities. Quick Hit is a 3-hit melee Brave attack with a 105% Brave damage output. Slash is a 2-hit melee Brave attack with a medium chance to inflict small speed down for 5 turns and has a 120% Brave damage output. Now his 15 CP Astral Sword grants 10% attack up and small speed up to Titus, I'm sorry, for 3 turns, and it also increases the overall brave damage of quick hit to 140%. His 35 CP Brotherhood passive inflicts 25% attack and 25% defense down to the target for 6 turns. It also guarantees that small speed down debuff and extends it to 6 turns this time, and it increases its overall damage to 140%. And don't forget, after the 2 brave hits, he deals HP damage right afterwards. So the verdict on this is, it's obvious Titus's 35 CP takes the priority here, because it also gives him the option now to deal HP damage with slash combo, and the debuffs further increases his damage, while having only the 15 CP gives him a great option to brave shave, and also quick hit has that low action delay or that high turn rate. Having the Brotherhood passive first at least gives you access to an HP attack right afterwards, so he deals both different types of damage. So I'm gonna say that the 35 CP is the one to prioritize here. Alright, so the next character is going to be Zell. So Zell's 2 abilities are Punch Rush being a 4-hit melee brave attack. It grants him that dual stance, which gives him 50% attack up for 3 turns, and also it grants him 40% max brave up for 6 turns, so he gets an overall damage increase after he uses Punch Rush, and he also inflicts 30% defense down for 3 turns to the target. And don't forget, after you use Punch Rush, it changes Punch Rush to Burning Rave, Brave Attack to Brave Attack Plus, and Booyah to Meteor Barrage. And then his second ability, Booyah, is a 1-hit Thunder Melee Brave Attack. It grants dual stance just like Punch Rush does, and it also gives him that 40% max Brave up, and it also inflicts that 30% defense down for 3 turns. Now his 2 weapon passives are 15 CP Maverick passive, which extends the dual stance to 6 turns. It also increases the overall damage of Punch Rush to 140%. It increases Burning Rave's overall brave damage to 40%, and also it increases Burning Rave's splash HP damage to 20%. And then his 35 CP Gauntlet passive extends dual stance also to 6 turns. It also gives him 2 additional uses to Booyah, and it also increases Booyah's overall damage to 180%, and now it inflicts a 60% defense down debuff versus just a 30%. It also grants Zell 30% physical attack up for 6 turns, so further increasing his damage, and then it also increases the Meteor Barrage's overall brave damage to 240%. So my verdict on Zell is, so for Zell, even if you just have his 15, it'll give you a slightly harder hitting AoE in Burning Rave. So that's pretty useful for, let's say, clearing trash mobs. However, if you only have his 35 CP, which slightly edges out, his overall damage improves, because not only do you have the 50% attack up from dual stance, but you now also have that 30% physical attack up. So, and because those are 2 separate buffs, both of them work hand in hand together, and Zell is a physical damage dealer. So by slight edge, I'm going to give this to his 35 CP, but even just having his 15 CP, I feel he could still do fairly well. Next character we're going to look at, which is the final character, is going to be Lael, or some people pronounce it Laeli. I think it's pronounced Lael. So his 2 abilities are Field Burst, which is a 1-hit non-elemental magic brave attack. This has a high chance to inflict that force debuff for 5 turns, which halves the target's chase HP value. So what that does is it makes launching initiate a lot quicker, to where that animation where your character launches the enemy and then your other characters the next turn get to attack right after. And this has a 120% brave damage output. And then his second ability is Energy Gain, which is a 1-hit non-elemental magic brave plus HP attack. It grants Lael 10% magic attack up for 3 turns. It deals 12 chase HP damage, making launching again initiate a lot quicker, and this has an 80% brave damage output. His 2 weapon passives going to him are his 15 CP Titus Phantom. So this guarantees the chance to inflict force, and it also extends it to 10 turns, and it increases the overall damage of Field Burst to 180%. And then his 35 CP Passio Kalinda is going to give him an additional usage to Energy Gain. It also grants him 30% magic attack up and extends it to 6 turns versus just 10%. And this time it also grants other party members Brave based on 30% of his own max Brave, and this time it also deals 18 chase HP versus just 12, making launching initiate quicker, and the overall damage on this ability is also increased to 160%. So my verdict on Lael is, so his ability to influence the launch is really valuable, because what that means is you deal more damage, and also it speeds up the summoning bar. Now, one weapon obviously grants a debuff to make this easier, which is the Force debuff from his 15 CP, while the other weapon deals a specific amount of chase damage. So both of them have ways to speed up initiating the launch. With that being said, I'm gonna say for this one as well, the 35 CP slightly edges out due to the buff that Lael gives to himself to actually deal more damage, and plus energy gain also has an HP attack right afterwards, and it has a small brave battery where it grants it to the other party members based on 30% of max brave. So if you like messing around with like chase HP and launching, and you're very familiar with that mechanic, then I'm gonna say definitely go for the 35 CP first if you're a newer player as a weapon, as far as like a budget build for Lael. But obviously, again, if you have both, prioritize the 15 CP by max limit breaking it, and then afterwards equip that 35 CP. Alright guys, well this is going to be it for part 9. I'm very happy to bring this series back. If there's any way that you guys want me to improve this particular series, let me know. Again, it's designed to help newer players or free-to-play players understand which of these two weapons, 15 CP or 35 CP for these characters, would benefit them most if you only have one or the other. Alright guys, well this is 40 the Broadway saying, stay tuned for more videos on Dissidia, Opera Omnia, and Mahal, everyone.